universe. Welcome to Pickathon Podcast, episode 15. I'm your host, Zale, and today my amazing guest is Mikaela Davis. And we're going to talk in a little bit here. This is the Wednesday, August 2nd. It's coming out before Pickathon. And what's kind of crazy, if you're listening to this and this day, is we're a couple days. We're literally tomorrow, after this podcast comes out, is the debut of a huge amount of work and sweat and craziness that goes into something like an event. And then Pickathon is like a whole nother beast on top of that, because we just love to collaborate and kind of make it an experience. And, you know, we talked a lot about different parts of that kind of festival world, but just having it all come together and having all the energy, like enjoying, I kind of constantly say during this like last couple of weeks, it's like be in the moment, be present, because the process dominates. Once it comes out, it feels like a flash, but that process really is kind of like a crazy part of anything creative put together, music, you know, just anything you can think of. And so, yeah, what to expect? Like what the feelings? It's trying to enjoy that before you get kind of in the moment. I have kind of a policy that I always love to work. We work ridiculous amount and we focus a ridiculous amount. But for something like Pickathon, being in the moment when it happens is kind of maybe atypical for some promoters or festival. But I am kind of adamant that why in the heck would you not be feeling and being in the moment with all this incredible art, energy, culture, and knowing how it kind of impacts, like how it people feel, and just and making that kind of connection to your own thing that you're making, and not getting wrapped up beyond why you did all this. And sometimes that's, you know, we've had different years where, like last year, where we had a lot of issues with parking, and I had to run out of the festival mid-festival and go find another parking lot. And we parked it because we used a golf course. You know, that's what's kind of really awesome. I'm talking a lot about that, but this year it's like a chance to take what we laid out and just make it 80, 90% better. And it takes a couple years to kind of really just make it perfect. I think it's going to be pretty perfect this year, though. We have a dream team. It's just incredible to see how much people are putting into the building and this, whether it's on this, just the sound or the crew, the volunteers. There's an insane number of volunteers at Pickathon, and it's such a shout out to that community, because they just make it feel so easy no matter where you are. If you're an artist or if you're a person who's going to the festival, we really break down that kind of VIP idea that, oh, only these people can have a good time. Everybody else is just going to have to suffer, and kind of, you know, you're there for the music you love, but you're suffering because you're not in a VIP. That's so makes no sense to us. Like, it's like having people to your house and you're saying you can eat dinner in the kitchen and the rest of us are going to eat in the dining room, you know, together. So like, that's just kind of like the magic of it, is it's everywhere you go. Doesn't matter if you're kind of just out in the audience, if you're an artist in the kind of backstage. We're kind of have this incredible fantasy island, Big Rock Candy Mountain, whatever you want to think. It's just, it's locked and loaded, and it's going to be definitely the best festival we've ever done. Definitely the best lineup we've ever had. And I'm not saying that lightly. I'm not, because I really feel it. And it's been a while since I've been this excited about bringing and debuting something. And that kind of leads me, you know, to, you know, one of the reasons I'm excited on the music side is just the musicians. And I like to say this year is the year of the bands, the assassins, the people that are just coming. They've been playing together, their groups, they're just incredible. And our musical guest today, Mikaela Davis, is no exception. Let me welcome Mikaela. Hi, how you doing?
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing great. It's just wild to be so close, and yeah, it's coming. But let's talk about you. I'll just kind of give a little bit of background. You play harp in way too many genres, in a rock, Americana, jam, folk, many other things. It's like you guys are doing what I kind of think is a modern thing, and a lot of the best music is you're synthesizing everything you probably have ever heard. Is that fair?
Yeah. I never really know what genre to explain us as, but it's definitely because all 5 band members come from different backgrounds. I'm a classically trained harpist. I started playing harp when I was 8 years old. I have a degree in harp performance. And then my drummer and childhood friend, Alex, and my guitar player, Kian, they both went to school for jazz.
Oh, wow.
And my pedal steel player, Kurt, he went to the Ali Akbar Khan Music of Indian classical music in San Francisco. And then Shane, my bass player, I made him graduate from high school a year early to tour with us. So I guess that's his school, but he's extremely knowledgeable about all kinds of music, and he's a record nerd and just all around great guy and bass player.
It shows. You know, your band is that kind of definition of a unit. You guys have been playing long enough together that you can almost finish each other's musical sentences.
Definitely.
It's really kind of cool. It's cool to hear, and it's hard to get there. It's not like you don't just play it the first time and that happens, you know?
Yeah, we've been playing together collectively for, I guess, around 10 years.
And you grew up in Rochester, right? Which is...
That's right.
So, what is that like? What's the music scene there? Or what was your journey in that town?
Well, I started taking harp lessons through my public school in Rochester, which is pretty unusual.
Yeah.
So that I'm really thankful for, growing up in Rochester and being exposed to the harp at such a young age. And
how young?
Growing up, I was shown the harp in 2nd grade. So I was 7, and then I started playing harp the following year when I was 8 years old. I started harp and piano at the same time.
That's incredible, because I don't know. I've never heard of a elementary school having harp.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, it might be just because Eastman is there and there's a lot of cool music going on. I think my teacher growing up, Grace Wong, may have had something to do with the harps being donated to my school.
So cool.
But yeah, it was just a definite stroke of luck there.
I mean,
and that just was my whole destiny after that. You know, I had no idea what I was in for.
And so you have to kind of learn it, right? The repertoire to learn that is like a classical repertoire, right? When you start.
Yeah. So I started with the orchestra teacher at the elementary school. And then after a year, she told my parents that I needed to move on and have a private teacher, because she basically taught me everything she knew. So I started private lessons the following year and, got really serious with that. Was in the Rochester Youth Philharmonic Orchestra.
Wow.
And all through high school, which was kind of a big deal. We toured in Europe when I was a freshman in high school.
Wow.
And then
you did your homework?
Yeah, I went to Canada.
Wow.
And then I went on to college. And harp is a pretty serious classical instrument, but it's all I've ever known. So when people tell me, oh man, that must be so difficult, it's not to me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, so you were clicking with it and kind of excelling at it at a super young age. Was it weird, touring and as a freshman, or just kind of your normal for you? A freshman in high school in Europe?
I mean, yeah, that was just touring in an orchestra. So
I know, but it was pretty major.
Yeah, it was a big deal. I guess I didn't really think much of it at the time because I was just a kid. I thought, if you're really serious about your instrument, this is what you do. You are in an orchestra, and
Right.
I knew that the youth orchestra I was in was a really good one, but that was just my path. I didn't know that I was gonna quit playing classical music and start touring in a rock band 5 or 6 years later.
So yeah, that's kind of the interesting part. So is there like some other bands in Rochester that you're kind of getting exposed to or hearing or thinking of, and that kind of started to change it? Or how did you start bridging out of classical?
Well, I started writing songs when I was 11.
Oh, wow.
On piano mostly. And then I switched to writing on harp with some encouragement from Alex, my now drummer, but we've been friends forever. We grew up around the corner from each other. And in high school, he would tell me, "Why do you write on piano? You should be writing songs on harp. That's so cool." So eventually I switched. And then we started playing music together. I think my first show at a club was when I was 18 at this place called the Bug Jar in Rochester. It's just a dive bar, and in the live room there's like a living room set up glued to the ceiling. Like,
is it a tiny place?
Yeah, it's like 200 cap venue, and it's like a greasy dive bar, but it's home to me and many bands who grew up playing in Rochester. But in the live room, there's like a sofa and chair and tables and refrigerator glued to the ceiling. Like if you look up, it's a whole different scene up there. That's always been a funny thing about the Bug Jar. But my first show was there, and it was just me playing harp and Alex playing the glockenspiel, bells. He wasn't fully playing drums yet. And then it progressed from there into eventually having drums and guitar and bass.
It's interesting. My neighbor who grew up in Rochester, she just moved back to there I guess 2 years ago. And she somehow saw you play either last year or this year in Rochester. And I'm guessing she said it was the smallest venue. and it must have been, I'm wondering if it was the Bug Jar if you played there in the last couple of years.
I played there a couple months ago, actually. I don't know if it was that recent, but I just played there, and it was so sweaty and just like I remembered. I hadn't played there in a really long time, but when I was in the basement, which is the quote unquote green room, but it's literally a basement. There's nothing fancy about it.
Yep.
And one of the owners, Bobby, came down and was like, he said, "How's the hospitality? Terrible as ever?" And that's just like sums up the Bug Jar in a nutshell, but it's, exactly what we wanted.
I mean, just to be fair, sometimes those kind of like just super intimate spaces are the best performances, because all I heard was like, oh my God, you have Mikaela Davis. This is the most incredible concert I ever saw. She was just so excited. And I mean, it's interesting. We started listening to your music, I guess in the fall. Like somebody introduced me, one of our networks, and I was listening to your album Delivery, I think it was, and every song on there kind of feels like a totally different direction. I mean, there's some like indie rock ballads, indie rock power, like electronic, almost like heavy keyboards. There's kind of like almost like a Fleetwood Mac on kind of Other Lover kind of feels like to me. There's this kind of just funky, sometimes you're in funky grooves. I love that song Delivery, which is this epic ballad.
Thank you.
And then like Little Bird is like a wholly different kind of folk rock anthem kind of thing. And it's cool because you wrote that 5 years ago. I mean, that came out, which means you wrote that when you were in your early 20s, right? You must have wrote most of those songs.
Yeah. It depends really. Delivery and Little Bird, I think, were written kind of generally around the same time. Delivery just like came to me. I don't even remember writing it, but I wrote it at my mom's house on her piano, like the piano I started writing songs on in like a day, in a matter of hours. And then Little Bird was an idea I had that I brought to Alex, and he helped me flesh it out and finish it.
Yeah, that was actually there was a recording where your whole band is playing that on a kind of sessions or vinyl or something. Is that Southern Star? Was that video have the full band?
Yeah, that's most of them. Our vinyl sessions was no drums, but everybody else was there. Alex had just had a baby, so he was out on that tour.
But that song is done with drums too.
Yes, yeah. On the studio recording, there's drums. The studio recording is like the opposite of our vinyl session. It's like really, it goes pretty hard, and there's a lot of stuff going on. But in our vinyl session, we wanted to do a more acoustic version and have mandolin and focus more on the vocal harmonies.
It's cool. And so that means like you're growing up in Rochester, you're playing classical. So the kind of switch over to kind of bringing in this performance into these other styles was just kind of you living in Rochester with your friends. Was there any other kind of seminal bands out of Rochester that were influencing you at the time? I'm trying to understand like what was going on there.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of there's so many bands in the scene. One of the most successful bands from Rochester is Joywave, if you've heard of them. I've been friends with them for a while, and Dan and I used to joke about like who's gonna make it first. And then when their album started blowing up, I remember texting him being like, you won, okay, I get it. And Danielle Ponders from Rochester, she's blowing up right now. Incredible singer, gospel, R&B, just amazing public speaker. She has a great story too. Yeah, she was a lawyer and then quit, a public defender, and then quit her job to pursue music. But there's just a lot of great bands from Rochester, and that definitely had a lot of influence and impact on me.
That's cool. And because you're like 6 hours from the city, right? It's not like super close to New York City.
Yeah, Rochester's 6 hours, and I've lived all over New York State. When I went to college, I was up in Potsdam, New York, which is almost in Canada. And then right after I graduated, naturally, I'd moved to New York City because I thought that's just what you do. But after a year, I ended up moving back to Rochester and stayed there for a while. And now I live in the Hudson Valley, which is nice because it's closer to the city and other big cities around, and it's just in the mountains, and it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
I love it here.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Do you know a producer named Sam Evian? Do you know Sam?
Oh, yes. I am one of his biggest fans. I love Sam.
And his wife, Hannah Cohen, is incredible.
And Hannah is great, too. Yeah, she... I think has a new record that's done, hopefully coming out sometime soon. But yes, I'm a big fan of both of them.
I thought you might cross paths. I think you guys would be a great, fun collaboration to meet because we were talking to Courtney Marie Andrews, and she recorded a record there over kind of her last record, which he's an amazing producer.
Yes.
Just like writes these cool like.
Yeah, I've been thinking about how I'd love to work with him sometime.
All right,
so that's in my brain for sure. And I'm excited to see Courtney play this weekend too.
Oh yeah, she's incredible. Like I love her voice and her songwriting, and just there's something about I could hear her do anything. She could just sing the phone book. I'd be happy.
Yeah, and I mean she's an amazing artist and a great poet.
She and just painter. And,
does it all. Yeah.
And we talked about like how synthesizing. Do you have other outside kind of things besides music? Do you kind of bring in other kind of creative influences too?
I mean, not really. I'm not a great artist or anything like that. I stick to harp most of the time.
It's a lot. I mean, kind of going across harp it's interesting because there are like famous harpists, right? Like I was thinking of all the ones. I'm curious, who are your big harp influences?
I mean, obvious answer would be Dorothy Ashby and Alice Coltrane, jazz harpists.
Incredible.
They are really great. Carlos Salcedo is a classical harpist who wrote a lot of amazing compositions that I've played growing up when I was studying harp. And Andreas Voldenweider, if you've heard of him, he's a Swiss harpist who writes like more new age type music. But
interesting.
I love his stuff because it is more like a band. And it's like different than classical or jazz. Check out his album Down to the Moon. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, but were you fans like Joanna Newsom or?
Oh yeah, definitely. I love Joanna. I love her songwriting, and actually, she's one of the reasons why I started writing songs on harp instead of piano. My good friend's dad gave me a tape of her on a radio show being interviewed, and she was playing some things on the harp and just showing some extended technique, and played a couple songs. And he said, "Hey, Mikaela, I think you'd be really interested in this because I know you write songs and you play harp." So I thought, oh man, if she can do it, then I guess I can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I hear a lot of indie, crossover. I mean, there's definitely there's folk, but you have a really solid indie rock kind of understanding of music like that. You write complex songs, and the harp never really stands out. It's always there, but you don't put it forward to where it's like, sometimes you don't even know there's a harp being played in that. Like people I don't think register. If I played songs and they tried to tell me the instruments, they wouldn't necessarily even say harp, I'm thinking
I've had a couple people come to shows who didn't even know I was going to be playing harp. People who didn't really look into me that much, but maybe heard a song on the radio and decided to go to the show. But yeah, it just happens to be the instrument I play, but I'm using it as a guitar or whatever another songwriter would use to write a song.
Totally. Do you ever know another harpist I love, Mary Lattimore? Did you ever listen to her?
I do. Yes, I love Mary. I recently rented her harp to do some studio work in LA and met her for the first time. We've been internet friends for years, but had never met. So it was pretty great to finally meet her.
So great. So experimental and so interesting and just so creative, right?
Yeah. And she went to Eastman actually, which is in Rochester.
No way. You know, you're not the only harp at Pickathon this year. Did you know that?
Who else is playing?
Larry and Joe.
Oh.
Have you seen him yet?
No. What day are they playing?
I
have to check it out. I'll look it up.
Yes.
I hope we cross over.
So, well, Joe, he was in a band called Shea Appalachia. He kind of started it, and his parents were from Latin America, I think Argentina. And so he's always been kind of crossover and playing banjo, but really playing all of this, Latin. But he can easily play he's from North Carolina, so he can play any of that music. And I think the story was he's just always collaborating in the migrant community because he's in that, he loves that music. And he got connected with a construction worker who they said you should play with him, and Larry, I don't know Larry's last name, I'm terrible here, but he tends to be, he's like one of the greatest San Jarocho harp players I've ever seen in my entire life. And the two of them can play, it feels like there's 10 instruments up there. I don't know if you listen to much San Jarocho kind of music from Veracruz. The harp is like a centerpiece of that music. And the rhythms and the counter rhythms and the melodies of it's incredible to watch because you can't even make sense of it when you're watching it.
Cool. Oh man, I really hope I'm able to catch that.
Yeah, I think you'll love it. And I mean, so you wrote Delivery, but did you self-produce that and self-write? Then you released that back 2018. Like how did that get out in the world?
So Delivery came out on Rounder Records, and they set me up with John Congleton, a great producer.
That's a big production, Rounder.
Yeah. That was cool. When we went into the studio, some of the tunes we already knew how we were going to have them fleshed out, but some of the tunes the band hadn't heard, or we hadn't played them live yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do that to just see what we could come up with super fresh like that. So like with Get Gone, one of the tracks on the album, I didn't really expect it to be like a funky, grungy kind of tune, but that's what John heard, and Alex and Shane, the rhythm section, were on board with that. So it was really fun to just figure out how these tunes were going to sound right there in the studio. And with the new record, which comes out August 4th,
Mm-hmm.
that was quite the opposite. We've been playing those songs forever, and basically knew exactly how we wanted them to sound when we went into the studio. So it's been fun to work on both sides of that.
On Kill Rock Stars, which Portia actually lives here in Portland, so I know her well, just over the years. But the label's from Olympia, but she lives here with her husband, who started that label.
Yeah, Slim's working there again.
Oh, he is. He's back.
He's back. Yeah, he's back. And Rob, another one at the label, I know he's going to be at Pickathon.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exciting. And I've been a fan of Kill Rock Stars since high school because I'm a big fan of Elliott Smith. So it's pretty full circle to be putting out an album on Kill Rock Stars. It's pretty unreal, to be honest.
I know.
And I'm very excited.
That's super kind of influential, label, the Riot Girl, Elliott Smith, all that kind of era, it's interesting. There was, one of the things I found interesting too was, and I don't know how to put this whole timeline together, so maybe you can talk me, is so somewhere after your record came out, you toured a lot with, I saw lots of different posts, Lake Street Dive, Punch Brothers, Bon Iver, San Fermin. Lake Street Dive actually has played twice at Pickathon. They're kind of huge now. And then in 2020, you somehow ended up on with Bob Weir and the Wolf Brothers, right?
Yep.
And what's the story there?
So it was through a friend who sent a video of my band to Bob's management, and because he knew that Bob was having people sit in with him on that specific tour, and just sent him a video and said, hey, you should have this harpist sit in with Bob and play Birdsong. So one of his managers, Matt, showed the video to Bobby and Don and Jay, and they said, cool, sure, let's have her on in Syracuse. So I just got the email cold asking if I would sit in with Bob Weir in Syracuse in a week and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I flipped out. I remember I was at my mom's house at the time hanging out, and I literally screamed when I read the email, and she thought something was wrong, ran in. I was like, are you okay? So I was really excited and extremely nervous because I've been a fan.
That's the Dead. It's huge.
Yeah. I mean, I had been listening to the music, but I had never really learned it.
That's the scary part, right?
Yeah, exactly. But thankfully, two of my bandmates have been big fans since they were kids and knew the songs very well. So I had Kian help me figure out what the songs were all about.
What songs? Did they give you a list? Here's what we're going to play?
No, they asked me what I wanted to play. So
I
picked part of the set list. Yeah, so I picked Birdsong, China Cat into I Know You Rider, and I picked Wharf Rat. And then when I got there, Bob just said, hey, we want you to play Ripple on the encore with us. So I remember like during the first set, just like going and looking up the chords to Ripple, like, okay, how does this go? Thankfully, that one's pretty easy.
Pretty
so I was
straight
able
ahead.
to just learn it on the fly. But the scariest part was I had not really improvised much before at all. So, and they really encouraged me to improvise. I had done a little bit with my band, but I hadn't really, taken a harp solo. So I did that. And
Wow, how was it?
It was amazing. It was super fun. And they just made me feel so comfortable and like I could do no wrong. And I remember telling Don was that I hadn't improvised much. And something he said to me that has stuck with me until now is he just laughed and said, well, remember this, you're always a half step away from the right note. So you can't really play any wrong. And yeah, after that, I've just been improvising more on the harp and just learning. I've learned a lot from learning those songs because they're hard and they're pretty genius.
Yeah, just like the construction and the changes and the feeling that you have to have the whole time, right? So it's like keeping these kind of multiple things going.
Yeah, and I think one of the nicest parts about playing with Bob Weir and Wolf Brothers was that there was so much space for the harp because it's just guitar, drums, and bass. So, and my band will come down for me, and my drummer is a jazz drummer, so he can play quiet. Thank goodness.
Space. You need space. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Like, so you're. I didn't know that. I can totally understand that though, because from the world of like classical and precision, you're not, and it's not. It's just often you don't often see people who are amazing at one, like playing like fiddle tunes, because those kind of things end up being more like raw, right? And it's hard when you're so precise to get that raw sound sometimes because they teach you not to be that raw. And so
I mean, in the classical world, you basically are taught to play what's on the page, and you don't go beyond that. Yeah.
So you took that, and I know you ended up somehow getting sucked into a tiny desk, right? As part of that or something?
Oh yeah. That was all by chance as well. Bob invited me to play at Locken Festival in 2018. And when we were rehearsing for that in like a green room trailer, just acoustic, playing through some songs we were going to play, Don looked at me and looked at Bob and said, hey, this sounds really good. Bob, we should have her on Tiny Desk tomorrow. Mikaela, what are you doing tomorrow? And I was just planning on driving home to New York. So, of course, I changed my plans and met them in DC the next day for Tiny Desk.
And did they have you wing something, or did you know the songs you're playing?
I knew, I already knew Birdsong and Ripple, so it was no problem.
That's awesome. And from there, you kind of decided to bring kind of a little period, right? It's been going on. I don't know if it's still going on. Like you started bringing in kind of Grateful Dead into some of your sets, right?
Yeah, we'll still throw a tune in there every once in a while when we're feeling it, because we love the music. But we started mixing it into our set more and more because fans were coming out who heard of us through me playing with Bob or through like the Relics live stream that we did. And then after a couple years, when we were back out playing more shows in 2021 and didn't have a new record out, we decided to do some residencies where we would play a set of our own music and then a set of Grateful Dead music, just to have like a placeholder. So we're doing something new and fresh at these shows, even though we don't have new music out. and that's been such a joy. Really fun to play these tunes and learn more.
Did the band kind of grow through kind of opening up those tunes and playing those tunes?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we're always growing and evolving, and it's been really inspiring to learn these tunes. Of course, now that the new record's coming out, we're not really doing that. Focusing on the new album.
Yeah.
But we'll throw a tune in here and there when we see some Grateful Dead shirts in the audience.
Do you think you'll be playing one here in a couple of days at Pickathon?
Yeah, we'll
throw a couple through in there.
Yeah.
What I so looking forward to is the look on people's faces. I think on your new record, you work so hard. How many years have been coming together to put these tunes together for this record? Like how long has that been going on, you think, leading up to this?
I mean, we've had a lot of these songs some of them have been written since Delivery came out.
Oh, wow.
We've been playing them, we've been playing a lot of them for 4 or 5 years. But it just takes a long time to get everything together,
Yeah, and style-wise, you're kind of, again, coming from a lot of places. Like there's just almost like this Birds country, but with a twist on home in the country kind of vibe going on. And then, Far From You, and the song you just released, Cinderella, they're related to you as a band, but again, the amount of styles you're fusing together is pretty all over the map, and it works. It's just cool to see that this all is part of one album.
Yeah, thank you. And again, a lot of that's because of the background of all my bandmates, and this album specifically has songs by most everybody in the band. Everyone's a songwriter, and we have a couple songs that Kian wrote. Home in the Country is one of them.
Oh, cool.
And Shane and Kian also wrote Far From You, and I wrote the outro with the harp melody that's happening there. And then Cinderella was a song that Alex started and I finished. So there's a lot of collaboration on this album, and that's why I called it And Southern Star.
That's so
named
cool.
after the band.
Which kind of brings together, you're going to be releasing on August 4th, basically tomorrow. It's weird to think about the process, right? It's like, do you enjoy the process? Because when you release this record, it's awesome, but it's just kind of like, it's so much of it about is the things it took to get there, right?
Yeah, and then once you release it, it's suddenly over. It's not building up anymore, and it's just this moment of,
isn't it?
What now?
How does that feel for you? Like, do you think? Is
it? It's scary, and it's mostly exciting. And I'm always just interested in what I'm gonna do next. You never know what's gonna come, and sometimes I get nervous and think, oh man, what if I don't write a good song ever again? But that's the mystery of it. You figure it out. I feel everything, I've been kind of like, before I had kids, I was doing music more, but the festival was like my hobby. I could do this little thing. It totally grew out of control 24 years later. And so, yeah, all this buildup, there's this kind of weird thing where it just goes so fast. And you're like, so like these couple days, leading up before it goes. And then the fear of, we'll never be able to have that good of a festival. That was the best that we ever could do. It's all downhill. But, it's more faith, right? It's like faith that all of that. I am reminding myself hard to be in the moment and not look past this big release. And I hope you have the same kind of thing to enjoy when it comes out, because, it's hard to be in the moment and have that feeling like you just have to think of the next thing. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's one day at a time. And We are so excited to play Pickathon. I've known about this festival forever, and I've dreamed about playing it, and I can't believe we're finally about to do the thing. It's so exciting.
Do you know, are you guys coming in for the whole weekend? What's your time for the West?
Yeah, well, we have a show in Seattle on Saturday, so we're just there Thursday and Friday, and then we gotta skedaddle.
Okay. Well, are you guys, do you know?
But I wish we could stay, because I want to see Madison, Cunningham, and
come back
there's
on
other
Sunday.
people playing Saturday. That'll be
come back
awesome.
on Sunday.
We have a show. I think we have a show Sunday too. Do we? Oh no, we don't. Maybe we'll come back.
You should, because Pickathon.
Yeah, maybe we'll come through on Sunday.
Pickathon is a band vacation, and it is like there's no worries, and you just walk around and kind of, that's the whole thing. It's just to walk around. And Courtney met Sam Avion at Pickathon, just walking around. So that's how they met.
Wow, no way.
Are you a fan?
That's amazing.
Are you a fan of Madison Cunningham?
Yeah.
She's such a powerhouse.
She's amazing. We used to have the same manager, and before she started working with her now manager, Aaron, he showed me her first album and her EP. It was before Who Are You Now came out, and I remember really loving her early music, and then watching her blow up has just been really cool to see. She's so talented.
So talented. It's going to be awesome. So we should all be in the moment. And I'm really glad you have, and we both are going to share this kind of debut together, the debut of the festival and of your record. And it's going to just makes it more special for us. The only other time that I remember that happening is Tyler Childers' record in 2019 came out during Pickathon, and he went number 1 on Billboard that day. So I hope you go number 1 somewhere. But people are going to love you, and it's going to be this incredible, special moment. So when I see you, I'll remind you to enjoy it, and then you can remind me to say, maybe that'll help me.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, thank you. I'm so honored to be playing my album release show at Pickathon.
Woohoo.
Such a cool thing.
Yeah. And you guys, so thank you so much. It's going to be a glorious couple days. Hope everyone can come out and see Mikaela and just enjoy all of this amazing experiential things that we put together. You can't understand it. No one will make it any sense unless you come. It's just the truth. So no matter what anyone tells you. So that'll be the same about Mikaela's music, because it's an incredible live experience. I'm just telling everyone, and I'm telling you now. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much. This is the end of episode 15. Get out to the festival. Get out and buy Mikaela's record. Don't just stream it. Go find a place to buy it. Support this stuff. Support artists. Support Pickathon. And we will be back post-Pickathon with another podcast. And that'll be episode 16. And I thank you very much. Thanks, Mikaela.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. See you Thursday and Friday at Pickathon.
Woohoo!
Can't wait.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
This episode of the Pickathon Podcast was produced by Zale Schoenborn, Tanner McCullough, and Evan Throckmorton. Our artwork is by Travis Bone, and additional support by Ryan Stiles. The music in this episode was by our guest of honor, Mikaela Davis. The songs included were Get Gone, Home in the Country, and the one we're riding out on right now, Cinderella. Thank you to the whole Pickathon family. And like Zale said, we'll catch you all next week.